Okay, let's see here. Participants look like they're coming in here. If you can hear me, quickly go to the chat box and just say yes. And then don't use the chat box again. I'll use the Q&A after that. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Scott. All right, so I'll wait a minute here. And we're seeing people get on. I'll just get started. Well, listen, everyone, welcome for joining the webinar this afternoon, again with Tim McCleary on the latest Western Wealth capital opportunity. This one, again, is in Dallas. And it's it is sort of your bread and butter type opportunity, as you'll see. And, Tim is going to explain it to us, kind of go through the model again. And then specifically get into this specific property. I should point out there is only about $900,000 left to fund in this particular opportunity. So listen closely and make a decision if you want to proceed. With that, I will pass it over to my friend and colleague, Tim McCleary.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Buck. Thank you ever so much. And welcome everybody. And thank you for having me again. Forward statements. That's myself right there, Tim McCleary, VP Investor Relations. Before I just quickly jump in into the presentation, what we're going to talk about today is, like general, a little overview on Western Wealth Capital, who we are, what we've done in the past, how we do it, and then I'll talk a little bit about the Dallas market, and then the market the new project is in. But before I jump in, people ask a lot nowadays is, first of all, how are you finding these properties? And, I'm not sure if you're aware, but I mean, we have a 5-person team, acquisition team that are scouring the earth. Well, I'll talk about it a little bit later, but 12 cities that we really like. We're seeing a lot of deals. I call it, we're kissing a lot of babies, and we just don't buy a property to buy a property. We're buying the property if it makes sense and if the math makes sense. So when people ask me, how are you finding them? And is this just another property? No, it's not just another property. As you said, Buck, we have a cookie cutter process. We have a cookie cutter philosophy, very math based, and every property we buy, it definitely has to fit that criteria. So with said, our general partners, Janet LePage, Dave Steele, and Dr. Buck Joffrey. Janet LePage is our CEO, been in the real estate game for well over 10 years, started back in the day flipping houses. Then in 2008, when we had a little correction, she started flipping houses in Arizona, moved to flipping multifamily because she saw the opportunity where, from your risk reward, like why buy a house with only one family lives, why not buy a complex that, when she started, it was 15 to 20, now we're up to, 500 plus type of units. But Janet LePage has been in the business for well over 10 years. David Steele, who is the other co-GP, co-founder, over 30 years in the real estate business, very knowledgeable, still does a lot of ground up construction, has owned real estate both sides of the borders. And everybody knows Dr. Buck Joffrey. We are the second largest multifamily owner operator in Phoenix. To date, we have bought 69 properties. This number will change as of tomorrow. We will actually go to 70 properties with closing of Cedar Meadows. Same with the number of units, but over 15,000 units. We've sold 30 properties. Again, I'll talk a little bit about that. That's going to go up by one by mid to the end of December as well too. So we're very active in this space. We've done over $2 billion in transactional value to date. Our company is a 5-year-old company. The majority of this has probably been transacted in the last 3 years, 36 months. I love showing this slide. In 2019, this just updated today. We've returned close to $73 million to investors. So the 2018 number, just under $41 million by way of distributions, return of equity, and investor sale proceeds. 2019, we've blown it out of the water, just under 5 million in distributions. Why that number is a little bit lower is because the majority of the properties are newer. So they're not mature or stabilized. So that distribution was a little bit lower. The return on equity, of course, is a lot higher at 7.2 million. And then the investor sale proceeds basically more than double than what we did in 2018 of $61 million for a grand total of just under $73 million, which is a whole lot of money going back to our investors. To date, 30 properties we've sold for 502 million. Our average, we call it the 30-30-30. 30 properties for an average annualized return of 30%, and the average months owned of 30 months. I do touch on a couple points on this slide. One is this will be 31 at the end of December, but I do like pointing out two of our lowest returns, which were Arcadia Walk and Urban Trails. The two properties that did an annualized return of 11%. These are the two properties that did not meet pro forma. They were learning experiences for us both times. And if you would like further information on that, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. But again, 11% annualized, not bad. But again, a learning experience for us as we move forward. And then Sunwood sale. For all of your listeners that have invested in Sunwood, I believe you probably received a couple emails on this. Sunwood was a property. It was the first and only, as of to date, we call it senior 55 plus complex that we purchased in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, we will be closing on this property anywhere from mid to end of December, and the funds will be coming back. All funds will be able to be reused in any future projects to hold your spot. But I mean, this is a great story. We hit pro forma. We got a great offer, but what we found that managing this property was a bit troublesome than what we expected. And it's simple little things. You have a seniors complex. Well, it's 55 plus. However, the average age here was 72 years old. If you have a 2-bedroom suite on the second floor, nobody's going to rent that. And these were things that we self-discovered as we went through the process of owning this complex. Plus, another thing is in talking about vacancy and occupancy, one thing that we realized is, people in their early 70s or older pass away. So, people weren't moving out, people were passing away. And, that's something that you just don't project, or we didn't, with that, singular multifamily focus and dipping our toe in with that 55 plus complex. So we learned a lot from it. Like I said, we got an offer from a group that all they do is specialize in that 55 plus area. We thought, again, it made sense. We saw it being a bit of maybe a law of diminishing returns. So we decided to pull the trigger and we sold it. And we thought it was very advantageous to our LP investors as well, too. So,
yeah, I would just point out here, too, I think this is a great story. And I asked him to do a specific webinar, maybe even in the next couple of weeks, on divestments and various divestments, because I think it's a very educational thing that a lot of us, when we may not have the idea of like how the different things can turn out. If you look at the divestments and you see, 20%, who's complaining about 20%, right? And in fact, that's above pro forma. But we get spoiled because we see 30% all the time, et cetera. Some of these things also give situations where you haven't encountered, and that just sharpens up the model. In this case, I think that my takeaway from this was, you got a widget and you've got a model that works. You keep pounding it. And every time there's additional variables, like in this case, the additional variable was the age issue. And you didn't know to put down in your pro forma that, a couple people per month are dying, and that you didn't really realize that, 2 bedrooms are not really a great thing. 2 bedrooms, most people who are coming in these things, they're married. They don't have children anymore who are living with them, hopefully, although there's some millennials who do that these days, I hear. But but that's the kind of thing that I think is really interesting about learning about multifamily real estate. But I think, so I would highly recommend that you stay tuned in the next week or two, because Tim's going to do a webinar on different divestments and how they turned out, and whether they're at one just over a year like this one, or 4 years, or whatever. So anyway, thanks for talking
No,
about
and I
that.
mean we're happy. I mean we're actually happy. We're very pleased with this return on this property. As you said, we exceeded pro forma. Owning the property for 19 months. What we just saw was it's not in our vision of focus at this time, seniors complex. So we saw it as a cost on the operational side. So we decided, and we got a great offer. So we decided to invest. It's 20% is, as you said, is a fantastic
It's
number, right?
crazy when you're like almost apologetic about
Yeah. No, I
20%,
know.
but
Yeah.
it is the reality of the expectations, I think. And at the end of the day, again, this is a great return. But I just would point out that this is a property, again, that was kind of a problem property, right? So if you're getting 20% on a problem property, that's not a bad deal.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Why invest in U.S. multifamily now? Many reasons, and I touch on these all the time. Inflationary pressures will favor hard assets. So it's not really inflation we're talking about right now. I think it could be, that could change next week. Who knows? But it's just more of a flight to quality, I call it. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market. Like I said, I'm still a bit of a quote unquote market junkie, and I love checking in 4 times, 5 times a day, see what the Dow is doing, reading the comments out there, and seeing the market fluctuate based on not fundamentals but information, and not always good information. But the pros, let's call it the pros. They're sitting on the sidelines. They're moving their money into hard assets. And what's a hard asset? A hard asset is real estate. And what is one of the least risk in that vertical, and that's multifamily. And there is a lot of money going into that multifamily type of asset class. So it is pushing some of the prices up. However, we love it because we're also seeing some projects come our way that I call it have a lot of hair on them, meaning people who are trying to get in that multifamily game, trying to close, and guess what? When it's time to close, they don't have the cash nor the ability to operate. So the owners are bypassing the brokers and are bringing it to us, and we're seeing a lot of great stuff off market. But again, I foresee in the next probably 36 months still a lot of money heading toward the real estate and hard asset class. Sunbelt migration, again, just these are the metros that we look at, the metros that we operate in. That they definitely have a strong combination of growing population, job growth, and along with that affordability as well too. And then demographics. As I mentioned before, the U.S. population is projected to increase by 26 million by 2025. And where you want to live? Well, you're going to want to live in that Sun Belt, migration, not the Rust Belt areas, but just and the tax-friendly states as well too. We're seeing a huge influx of people moving out of I'm going to pick on California. California, just purely due to taxes, and moving to the Texas and the Nevadas and Floridas of the world. And then millennials aren't buying homes. As Buck mentioned, millennials, they're a generation of renters or living at home. I doubt with their senior parents, but they definitely are living at home a lot longer. And it actually just makes financial sense. And I always mention on this webinar, I have 2 millennials, and they're in my house, and I'd rather them be at home because they're saving money, and good for them. And when they do go, when they do move out, I guarantee you they're not going to be able to afford to buy a place. So they're going to be renting as well too. And again, it depends on their jobs when they move and location. So millennials, definitely aren't buying, but where are they going? And that's something that we follow. We follow, where millennials are heading. The top 4 are Washington, that Seattle area, Texas, was number 2. Colorado's number 3. Number 4 is Arizona. So again, 2 of the top 4 states we own, and we're basically looking on the top 5, top 6 states of where millennials moving to, or in areas that we like, and we're looking at always trying to buy properties. And so why is our system so successful? It really comes down to repeatability creates scalability. One thing that we do, we call it the McDonald's effect. Please don't sue us, but standardization is the key. We've created a widget, as Buck called it. It's a widget, and we never stray from it. And this is why, after 53 buildings that we've owned, operated, flipped, we're continuing to deliver on our model. It's the same every single time. Buy, operate, refinance, sell, and our whole vision, our whole goal is do it faster and faster and faster. So how do we do it? What we're doing is we're identifying the top markets in the U.S. for job growth, for population growth. I still believe the only direct correlation between rent growth is job growth. I think going back 35 years, we're also looking at where the jobs grow. So we're looking for those large employers moving to the area, the Apples, the Coca-Cola, the McKissons. As an example, Apple's building a $1 billion campus in Austin. Amazon, Atlanta, Coca-Cola is building a massive new distribution center in Houston, and McKesson, which is I believe either the largest or second largest pharma in the U.S., has moved from San Francisco to Irvine, Texas. So, these are the areas that we like, and one of the major reasons is because of the job growth. Then we had identify the top markets, price of rentals. So what we're looking for is a couple things. We're going into a market. I'm going to pick Nashville as an example. We love Nashville, but there's not a lot of our C plus product there. There's a ton of A and a ton of A being built. However, Dallas, Houston as an example, Phoenix, Atlanta, San Antonio. In those markets, there's a lot of A being built, but there's also a lot of C and C plus, and we love finding those C plus markets where that delta between the A that's being built versus that C or C plus that we're buying for, and then what we can take it to, that delta is still quite large. And as an example, if there's a brand new building built in Houston where it's an A property and they're charging $2,100 a month for let's say a 1,000 square foot place, so $210 a square foot for an A type of building. Well, we're buying a C plus building. We're redoing the whole area. With a Gold Star renovation, we're taking it from, let's say, $1.10 a square foot, maybe up to $1.45 a square foot, but they're getting a brand new and usually a lot bigger square foot place, because the older, those 80 type buildings are, much bigger than the 2019, 18 buildings they're building. And then that delta between that 2,100 and that 1,450 still great. So that's one thing that we look for, is that delta. And then, as I mentioned, we currently hold assets in 5 markets, second largest in Phoenix, Arizona. We have 5. This will be our 6th asset in Dallas. We have 11 in Houston, 3 in San Antonio, and we currently have 2 in Atlanta, Georgia, and growing there as well too. Markets we like, we always like touching on this. Atlanta, Jacksonville, Orlando, Florida, Tampa Bay, Vegas, Denver, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, Houston. As I said, our acquisition team very active. If you need to know what a airport lobby looks like, just let me know. I can tell you, because our team's definitely probably been there. I've taken Salt Lake City off here. Actually, took it off probably 6 months ago, but we are back very active looking in the Salt Lake City area. Again, just a tough market to find something, but we do really like that market, the growth. What you don't see on this slide is a lot of tertiary markets, I call them. I have people ask me, how about Reno? How about Indianapolis? No disrespect to people who live in those markets, but we stick to, we call them kind of a major market. Your Dallases and Houston's, and that's just again our MO. How do we find the perfect exit? Well, there's 6 things that we look for. First of all, singular multifamily properties, minimum 150 units and up. Sun was a great example of a property where, multifamily, but it was a seniors, so it was a little bit out of our daily wick, and one of the 11% annualized returns that where we didn't hit pro forma. One was a broken condo situation where we owned 87 of 100 condos, in Phoenix, part of an HOA, again, outside of our daily wick. And we had owned that for close to 4.5 years, and we divested with 11% annualized. And that's what we're deciding is, just stick to what we know. So multifamily properties, minimum 150 units and up, 70s, 80s, I'll add 90s asset, typically out of town owners, in need repair, in need of repair and repositioning. What we make sure is that the building is structurally sound. We do a lot of engineer upfront reports, but it's just, here's your typical Phoenix property here. It's brown on brown. It's the pool furniture you sit in, you'd fall through it. A nice retro shades there as well too. So it's usually it's overgrown landscaping. The leasing office is dark and dingy. Out of town owners, we love this as well too. A lot of times it's we call it mom and pop, living in let's say Los Angeles, that own a building in Dallas. They've owned it for 3 years. They're just milking it dry. It's sitting at occupancy of 95, 96. They haven't visited in 3 years. It's a cash flowing type of asset, and it's now time that they got to cut a check for $1 million, $1.5 million bucks, it needs a new paint job. There's holes in the driveway, leasing office, like I said, old furniture. They've literally done nothing, in the 3 years that they've owned it, and probably the previous owners who've owned it for 7 or 8 years before that done nothing as well too. So it's just a total yield type of play for them. So that's another thing that we look for. Neglectfully and poorly managed. I always love showing this slide because this is Country Gables. It is a property that we did buy in Phoenix, and this was the actual monument sign. So if you were driving down the street looking at renting or looking for a new place to live, and this was the monument sign that was outside of this complex. Again, we love that. We saw that. We walked in, we bought this property. And then ample employment. As I mentioned, we're always looking to make sure that, within 30 minutes of the property that there is, ample employment opportunities. And then another thing that we're looking, not only ample employment, but what we're looking for nowadays is that tertiary market, so that, making sure there's the interstate, the highways, that is close to that, so people can actually get around in and out quickly, as we say it. So what do we do to add value? As I mentioned, what we're trying to do is create that wow experience from the moment that that prospective new tenant walks onto our property or drives into our property. We're trying to create that wow experience from that second that they pull in or walk on. So it's that curb to suite appeal. It's the paint. It's the resurfacing of the driveway. And it's just trying to create that best experience from the moment that they step on the property, making sure it's welcoming as well too. This is a sample of one of our leasing offices / clubhouses. Again, this property is in Phoenix. This did not look like it when we bought this property. This is a fantastic transformation, but if you're looking to lease a new place to live, and you walk into a building like this, bright, open, great colors, it just says welcome versus the dark, dingy, closed down type of space. And then, what we're doing from day one is talking about repeatability and scalability is we renovate, and we buy and start renovating, and we do it over and over again. Plus, we're adding value. So there's renovations. This is a typical classic suite that we look for when we buy a complex. We're looking for, that brown shag carpet. We're looking for these brown, brown cupboards with no pulls. We're looking for the white appliances, these horrible countertops, that fluorescent lighting up top, the pink type of toilets. These are things that we look for because for our business model, for our business plan to make sense, for it to work, for us to buy the building. This is what what we're looking for. So we take something like this, we add value, and we turn it into what we call it our Gold Star renovation. And it's very simple. People call this is construction. It's not real construction. It's putting backsplash in, a new lighting package, resurfacing the countertops, resurfacing the cupboards, putting new pulls in, stainless steel appliances, new flooring, new paint. And the one thing that we can do is we do this fast. We're banging these out in 10 days. Our record is 6. That was at Bel Air in Dallas, in the Las Colinas area. We did a Gold Star renovation in 6 days. So everything about Western Wealth Capital is how can we do it, and how can we do it faster, better, quicker.
Let me just interrupt for a moment, because I think a number of you've probably seen these things before. And let me just kind of talk about what Tim's talking about, because we've seen some different models lately. I mean, Dante and I through Turo did a much more sort of hybrid model. And in our situations, what we do is, we're running 99%, 98%, and we're slowly moving things over so that there's sort of a cash flow / value add approach. And we certainly don't do anything like this. I mean, this is a total, like taking something apart and putting it back together. The other so the big difference here between the models is that this is a model of speed. Okay, it's speed and massive value add. And so you may ask what the big deal is. Well, think about it this way. If you have a pro forma that shows you that, you can potentially you can double your equity over a period of time, what determines your annualized return or your IRR? Is one variable that is the most important outside of execution and outside of the, how much you can get for raising rents and stuff. And that variable is time. Okay. That variable is time. And so I have never seen a model like this before where it really, really takes into account this variable of time to such an extent. In fact, I remember when Ken McElroy came to our meetup in Phoenix, Scottsdale, and was looking at Dave Steele's model. And he's known Dave, the principal, for 30 years. And he said, well, I think you guys are probably more of a money machine than we are, right? And why is that? Because it's the time element. It's about being able to turn these over and to create massive amounts of compounding returns. And so more than any syndication group or operator out there, this is something I think that is truly unique that I've witnessed. I've not seen anybody else work like this, the Western Wealth Capital. And that is the major distinction between their model and certainly what, Dante and I do, where we're focusing on cash flow and doing things slowly like others. But if you want capital growth quickly, this is a model that really defines that. Tim, do you have anything to add?
No, you're correct. And it really comes down to the faster we can do it, the faster we can change that widget, the faster we can refinance those properties, and the faster we can get the money back to our clients. And that increases, as you said, that's the infinite return over the velocity of your money, and which you always talk about, and I love. Because if you have the money back in your pocket and you still own 100% of that property, and you take those funds and invest it somewhere else, you're making money on your money, and you're just increasing the velocity of your money. And as you said, Buck, it all comes down to time. The faster that happens, the better for the investors. And that's our main focus is Western Wealth. It's all about speed. It's the faster we can do this, it's the better off of, well, a couple things. One is we are, the faster we do this, we can create value in that property. We're also de-risking your investment as well too, because we're taking that cap rate from, let's just throw a cap rate of 5 to 7 right away, and we're moving that building from let's say a $20 million purchase price to $25 million. So if the market does correct, guess what?
Well, and that's an important point. Let me just reiterate that again, because sometimes Tim says stuff and it's important to understand. When you create value, you create increasing net operating income. What you're effectively doing is dynamically decompressing cap rates.
Correct.
Right? And so you're giving yourself a little bit wiggle room if there is decompression of cap rates, and you're basically increasing your cash flow. Now, this is not a cash flow model where you're going to get a lot of cash flow, because it's really about creating capital growth. But if there was ever a situation where you needed to sort of buckle down and just cash flow for a while you're trying to get through things, dynamically decompressing cap rates, just like Tim said, is de-risking, very much de-risking. And that's another element of this model that I like.
Yeah, perfect. And then, our whole model is to repeat. So to try to do this as quick as possible, refinance, get the money back, and do it again. That's what our model shows. To date, we've had 15 refinances, 3 in the second round. Now the majority of these properties are actually now being sold. We did refinance only 2 this year, Sierra Pines for 57% in 23-month period, and then Country Gables at 37% at 21 months. Now, our typical model shows, you'll see, shows a 50% refinance at the 24-month period. But Country Gables is an interesting story. We're moving so quick there. We're getting low on our CapEx, and we've already hit our pro forma for the number of value add Gold Star renovations and washer and dryers. So what we've decided to do is we didn't give the full, I think what it worked out to about 54% back to our investors. We held us a portion back to put back into CapEx to continue on with the CapEx spend, and taking it to, instead of 65% of that value creation, to about 85%. And all that means is we're increasing that net operating income, as you talked about, Buck, and the value of that building is astronomical. So, even though we didn't hit the 50% return on your capital of the 24-month period, we would have if we gave it all out. We thought it was best interest of the investors to put some back into the CapEx, return 37%, put some money back, keep going, because of that value of the building is and the growth of NOI is dramatic. So those are our refinances to date. Now the science, and this is a little bit what Buck was just talking about, is the science behind that value add. What we do is, we take a classic unit. So market fundamentals are, they're really critical to our success. So as I mentioned, before we stop, before we start shopping for a building, we're making sure we're looking at, the property does have these classic units, besides the job growth and population growth, and so people are going where jobs grow, as I mentioned. But we make sure the property has this classic unit. We implement our Gold Star renovation, like I just talked about here. We transform it to this as fast as possible. And again, I mentioned we're flipping these in about 10 days right now. Again, simple. What we do, we look for properties that are pre-plumbed, but don't have in-suite washer and dryers. So what we do is we go install a washer and dryer. Very simple. There's no rocket science here yet. And by doing this, what we do is we go back to those new tenants moving in and saying, we typically do this on turn. So when somebody moves out, we'll go do a Gold Star renovation. We'll put a washer and dryer in. Let's say that one bedroom was renting for $800, but when we're renewing it for $950. And we're renewing it for $950 because we know we're going to be able to get $950. We're not guessing. It's not guesswork. We do a lot of due diligence and research. And typically we're buying properties, and your properties we already own. So again, this is just a simple example. So by doing this, we're going to charge another $150 per month. So you're new people just walked in and to sign this lease. It went from $800 to $950. And really, what does that do? Well, it's increasing net operating income. Now, NOI, net operating income, is a thing that drives, as Buck's alluded to earlier, it drives basically the equity in the building. So it drives the valuation of that commercial property. So for that simple $150 per month that leasing manager turned that building at, what is it going to do for the building? And this is how we look at it. So that simple $150 per month. So we take the 150 times by 12 equals to $1,800 in additional annual net operating income. Well, that $1,800 additional NOI divided by a cap rate, and this is just for simple math, and I haven't updated my presentation, so I apologize. But we use 5.5 cap rate, so 1,800 divided by 5.5. What does that mean? For that one unit, by doing that Gold Star renovation, installing a washer and dryer, we've now created $32,000 in additional value for that one unit. Now, I'll take a step back. Simple math. If we buy a building, and let's say that one unit cost per door is $100,000, and let's say, again, for easy math, we do 75-25 leverage. So we're borrowing 75% and we're putting 25% down. So we're putting $25,000 down and we're borrowing $75,000 by basically doing a Gold Star renovation, washer and dryer in, charging an extra $150 a month at that going cap rate of 5.25%. We have more than doubled the equity in that one unit. So to take this a little further, let's say we buy a building for $20 million. It has 200 units. And, we plan to do 65% renovations. We're not going to do 80. We're not going to do 85. We'd like to do that, but we don't perform that. We're very conservative in our model. So we're only performing to do 130 planned renovations. And let's say each of that is adding $150 a month on average, of those, 130 planned renovations. So we're doing 130 Gold Star renovations. We're doing 130 washer and dryers. What is it doing to your building? $4.1 million in additional value is added. So if we bought that building for $20 million, once we created that 65, or once we completed, not created, we've done those 65 value add Gold Star renovations and washer and dryers. What does it mean to our investors? That we've now created over $4 million in additional value. So I'm going to take a look back and say, what did we do in 2018? Well, we did just over 1,000 Gold Star renovations for, about $1.2 million in additional NOI. What did that mean to investors? Well, we created an additional value of over $23 million in 2018. Well, what have we done so far in 2019? We have done over 2,000 Gold Star renovations as of November 21st. What have we done in annual NOI? Excuse me, just over 2.5 million. What does that translate? That translates to over $50 million in additional value we've already created in 2019. Again, not rocket science. It just comes down to math and very simple math. But it's talking about the art of time. The faster we can do this, the quicker we can get that equity, create that equity, refinance that money, and get it back to our investors.
Listen, one of the things that I think to simplify this is that if you look at commercial real estate, one of the great advantages of commercial real estate is that things are bought on valuation, right? And so what we're looking at, if we say the numbers that Tim is using, basically what we're saying is, if you increase the net operating income, which is basically just a profit, right? Just a profit without debt. If you increase the profit by $1, you're going to increase the value of the property by $20. That is the entire game. That's basically the entire game. And then the question is, how quickly can you do it? Because if you increase $1 to $20 over 5 years, that's 4%. If you do it in 2 years, it's 10. So that's really what the game is here. And I just want to emphasize that because this is math. This is math. Simple.
It's simple math. Yeah. Yeah. You're correct. And thanks for stepping in there. I was losing my voice there, Buck. Thank you for that. I had a drink of water. In the art operations, the one thing about the commercial real estate multifamily business is it's being done the same way, over and over and over. One thing that Janet and Dave has decided is to kind of turn it on its head and doing it differently. And Janet has the saying, I mean, she's won so many awards. She's won another 3 awards again this year, but doing business in, just not in term sheets alone, human terms, not term sheets alone. And so operations has a lot to do around basically that human touch. And, so that's our whole thing, doing it differently. People don't mind paying more for rent if you actually do what you say you're going to do. And there are multiple properties I walk on and people ask, who am I? And as I'm usually some guy in a suit walking around. And I say I'm, with the company that, owns the property. And a lot of them are saying, thank you. Just thank you. Thank you for filling the potholes. Thank you for fencing, the garbage containers. Thank you for painting. I've been here for 22 years and all the other owners have never done a thing. So again, it's pride of ownership and people don't mind. What they don't like is, paying more on a promise. And, we see that. And one thing that, we do is we make these changes on day one. We're doing it as Buck said, fast. I mean, time. In our world, time is the enemy, and we're trying to do this as fast as possible. I mean, when we took over our Bel Air Las Colinas property, I'm not sure if everybody heard this story, but the police showed up because we were there first thing in the morning. We started transitioning that property, and what happened is the property managers, we had transitioned them out. What they actually called the police and they showed up and said, you don't own the building until 2 p.m. today. So they kicked us off the site. That's how fast we move. Again, when we take over a building, and if it's a Thursday, and if it's a Thursday morning and that tenant goes to work Thursday morning, when they're coming home, they're seeing the food trucks there, they're seeing the ice cream trucks, they see storyboards up, we're there's a party going on. We've changed the pool furniture out. It's the landscaping. We're starting there. We're starting on the leasing office. Again, we're moving at light speed, but again, what we're trying to do is take it from a place where people are just kind of sleeping and staying and living. We're moving it from that, and we're trying to create those communities. So, we do have a thing called a 52-point checklist. It used to be a 24-point checklist that, the old 24-point checklist, maybe 5 years ago, we were hitting, 8 of the 24. Now 24 out of 24 isn't good enough. We have a 52-point checklist. And again, it just comes down to speed. We're trying to move everything faster. And then what we're doing is we have third-party property managers that manage all of our properties. However, we do have 5 asset managers that work for Western Wealth Capital, and they manage the property managers. And we get daily reports from our property manager. So we know what has transacted on that property every day, how many people walked, what the renewals were, how many renos are done. And we're looking, 90 days out on every single property. We bring all this information together. We scorecard it, and then we discuss it every Wednesday morning. And then actually we share all this feedback with the 6 different independent third-party property managers we use. And we rank them, basically first, second, third, fourth quartile. And we just share best practices. But and why we do that is because, again, the property management business is pretty darn boring. They would be satisfied with 6 out of 10. In our world, there's no such thing as 6 out of 10. We're looking for 10 out of 10. And as I mentioned, here's just a great example of that real-time feedback. These are actual emails that the exec team receives starting at 4 p.m. Every day, and it talks to every single property, anywhere from how many rentals, net rentals, where the Craigslist posts, traffic, why they didn't lease, ATR. So I mean, this is the information we're getting constantly, and then employee recognition. Even though the property managers aren't, they're third party, they're not employees of Western Wealth Capital, but we treat them like employees, and it's that, again, that human touch. And I tell this story all the time about Hector, who worked 21 years in the same property. We took it over, and I think it was like 3 weeks in since we own it. The new property management team that was working with us, that was taking care of the building, saw Hector doing something very simple and went and asked him what he was doing and why he was doing it. And he said, well, typically you'd call a plumber and it would be more expensive and take a little bit longer, but he just said, I can fix it. So I fixed it. So we bought him a $100 gift card and thanked him. And the guy was in tears. 21 years that he's worked at that property, not one person ever thanked him. So again, that's what it comes down to, is just, making sure that people that we work with feel, very, very special. And again, creating communities. We have a lot of different ways that we give back, but that's Janet with 2 officers, and this was in Phoenix of August, not of 2019, but August of 2018, when we were doing We Got Your Back, and we were giving our $3,000 or 3,000 backpacks back to our kids. And these 2 officers showed up, and they actually just came in, and one of them said, we just wanted to thank you, because we know when we see the black and yellow signs outside the buildings that it's going to go from a place that we don't have to worry about. You had to worry about, that we just don't have to worry about anymore. So thank you for that. It was pretty cool. And this is a before picture, the after picture with Janet just bawling, because she takes it so personal. So, which is pretty cool. So the new opportunity, Valley Oaks Apartment Homes in Dallas. Before I talk about that, just want to quickly touch on why Dallas. It's just a market, as I said, that we really, really love. And we continue to buy, and we will continue to buy in Dallas. It's a phenomenal market, and there's a couple major reasons why. Here's a couple macro market overviews. It's a large metro population of 7.4 million, a city of 1.3 million. Unemployment is low, below national average. The median income is above national average, and the cost of rent versus the ratio to your income is quite low in Dallas as well too. So, a couple highlights here. It's number 1, metro for job growth in the past 10 years. Since 2019, it's seen a 21% increase in employment growth. It's got a significantly higher percentage of younger population that's supporting that labor growth. And then job growth continues to fuel population job gains, making Dallas the epicenter for the latest Texas boom. I believe there's something like 1,000 people a day moving to Texas. It's unbelievable. It's the number 2 driver job growth in the U.S. Dallas-Fort Worth added over 116,000 jobs in 2018 and over 600,000 jobs in the last 6 years, making it the 2nd largest driver of job growth in the U.S. behind New York. The industries Dallas is seeing as most growth are medical. We see that a lot, and of course in Dallas and Houston, engineering, tech, and it's got the largest concentration of tech professionals in the southern U.S. It's the number 1 real estate market in Washington Nation. This was a PwC report in 2019. It's the 3rd highest concentration of Fortune 500 companies in the U.S. It will gain 2 Fortune 500 headquarters this year, McKesson and DJO, bringing Dallas's total Fortune 500 headquarters to 24. And here's just some of the sampling. As I said, McKesson, Exxon, AT&T. Exxon Mobil is number 2. McKesson's number 7. And AT&T is number 9. Now the submarket. Valley Oaks, or Hearst, Dallas, Valley Oaks is located in Hearst. It's convenient mid-city location with strong and consistent submarket. Average occupancy in submarket is just under 96% at 95.8%. The employment in Hearst, Valley Oaks is situated in a convenient mid-cities location, allows convenient access to multiple employment opportunities. Just under 130,000 jobs within a 5-mile radius of the property. Downtown Fort Worth, 22 minutes from Valley Oaks, over 45,000 employees. Some of the biggest employers are Texas Health Resources, Bank of America, AT&T, Lockheed Martin, and the Baylor Health Center. Of course, the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, which is 20 minutes from Valley Oaks, over 60,000 plus jobs. It is the 4th busiest airport in the U.S. And I believe it's the 15th largest in the world in terms of number of passengers that pass through there. And we love buying near airports because the properties are typically workforce housing we're buying. And if you work at the airport, you live close to the airport, which is, a lot of our properties. To work at the airport, you have to be pre-screened, and not just anybody can work at the airport. So that's something we look for as well too. Plus the American Airlines expansion, there's 25,000 jobs in Dallas that plan to expand with a presence in Dallas-Fort Worth. They're building a $3 billion terminal with 24 new gates. And then again, American Airlines, which is number 68 in the Fortune 500, currently operates 900 flights daily from the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. KDC and Verizon development. It's a $1 billion mixed-use development. It's got a rail station, hotels, retail, office space. It's 25 minutes from Valley Oaks. And then American Specialty Health, 30 minutes from Valley Oaks, over 164,000 square feet of office space. It's adding at least 500 new jobs. It's at the Alliance, Texas, and North Fort Worth. And then Stanley Black and Decker development, again, 500 new jobs. It's a $90 million development. It's 425,000 square foot of new manufacturing plant. They're Stanley Black and Decker decided to bring more of their business back stateside. So where they're going to go in Texas, where it makes sense, where the jobs are going. Valley Oaks, another thing that we look for is school districts. Valley Oaks is in the top 5% of the Texas school districts. With 2 schools just 5 minutes from Valley Oaks, this submarket attracts a lot of families. And so the Hearst Junior High School and the Harrison Lane Elementary. So a quick look at the new opportunity, the Valley Oaks apartment homes. Year built 1979, 322 units. The average square foot per unit is 917. Purchase price is $33 million flat. So our cost per door is just over $100,000, and we're raising just under $13 million. So just want to show you a couple pictures. This is not a rendering. This is an actual picture. As you can tell, the previous owner has spent some capital in the past few years upgrading some of the common areas at Valley Oaks, and we love that because that means our CapEx spend won't be focused solely on that amenities and the exteriors. We can save that CapEx money for the interiors, and that's where the interiors drive the NOI. So here's a great picture. It looks fantastic. Again, some brand new landscaping. This is brand new. The landscaping looks fantastic. They've just put in a barbecue area, gazebo there as well too. Even some of the patio furniture, we like their colors, but it looks great. But this is money right here. The washer and dryer, this is coming out, and this is going to be where we're going to put a parcel pending in here. And I don't think I've even talked about parcel pending, but it's a great little way that drives NOI, where once you put parcel pending in, you're charging your tenants anywhere from $7 to $9 a month. And again, simple math. You have 100 and something lockers at $7 to $9 per month. you've now just created close to $600,000 in equity just by putting some parcel pending. And what those are is, where Amazon, when they're dropping off from all that Black Friday shopping, they're not going into the leasing office. They're actually going to the parcel pending station. They're putting the parcel in there. And then you get a text or an email from the parcel pending machine tells you, there's a box in number 26 and here's your code. So you go punch it in and it opens up. There's your parcel. We charge anywhere between $7 and $9 for that. And every single property where we have those parcel pending sold out. We're actually even adding more in some of our properties wherever we can. So we love this. We love this picture because these are coming out. They're going into the suites, and here's your parcel pending. Here's some of the highlights. We call this a clean sweep. A sweep. Three things that we really look for. Actually, there's a fourth here as well too. But again, rents are they're well below market. When we look at our comparisons, there were 6 comparisons in this market, and definitely well below market. There is some rent disparity within the building itself, and what that means is if Buck has a 1-bedroom apartment and he's paying $700 a month, and I have a very similar 1-bedroom type of unit, same layout and square feet and everything else, and I'm paying $800 a month. When Buck lease expires in 3 months, he's going to be paying at least $800 for that. If he's going to go classic, he's going to be paying $800. Will probably be paying $825. So there is that just shows that the current property managers are not doing a very good job at managing or that lease management process, and that's something that we're very good as well. Again, very ideal for its Gold Star renovations. A lot of the suites are just just simply untouched. So I'll have to take a look to see what percentage we're looking at doing. I believe it's 65%, but it's definitely ideal for Gold Star interior upgrades. It's all pre-plumbed for washer and dryer connections, which we love. And then there is a percentage of units that we can actually put in. We call it a private fence backyard. So if you have small pets, they can just go out and enjoy the yard without running away. Or you can have your kids playing out there. And we're always looking at ways that we can increase the net operating income. And our cost for this is $1,000. We're getting anywhere between $75 to $125 in our buildings for this. And you think about that, 2 for 1 in net operating income. So for $100,
that's insane. Say that again.
So for $1,000 cost, we're getting anywhere from $75 to $125. So at $100 a month, you've now created $20,000 in equity value on that one door. That's by putting a private fence backyard in. So our business plan, simple. If you haven't seen this before, I'll go through each line item. Normalized rents, that's that lost lease that I was talking about with Buck's 1-bedroom versus my 1-bedroom. So just by normalizing those leases through the property, we feel that we're going to increase that annual net operating income by just under just over $480,000. Based on a 5.25 cap rate. That's what we pro forma'd. Just to let everybody know what we bought it at. We bought it at a 4.97, but we're performing at a 5.25. We've now created just over $9 million in equity value. Our interior upgrades, we're looking at doing 176 of the 322 units. At a cost of $125, so increasing the annual net operating income again about $260,000, which adds over $5 million in value. Washer and dryers, 263. We're starting to bump this number up a little bit more from this 65 percentile, because what we're doing is we're actually just taking the laundry services out so that the tenants have nowhere to do the laundry. So the option is to put the washer and dryers in for $40 a month. By doing this, we're increasing the annual net operating income by just over $155,000. Again, another $3 million based on that 5.25 cap rate. And then lastly, the private backyards, we've recognized a minimum of 25 that we can do at $100. So increasing your NOI by 30,000, creating, just under $600,000 in increased value. So adding those four simple things up, we are actually raising $12.9 million. We're buying the building for 33. And by just doing those four simple things, we're creating, just under $18 million in additional equity or value in the building. And that doesn't include a lot of the simple things like valet trash. It doesn't include our parcel pending, which I've talked about. I call that's the bonus NOI that I don't talk about. And why I don't like to talk about it is because, again, we're very conservative model. We're not going to throw everything in and say we're going to do this. What we're saying is we're going to be able to do 60, 65%. And then there's your bonus NOI initiatives as well too. But by just doing those four simple things based on that math, on that just under $13 million raise, we feel we can create close to $18 million in equity valuation. So how do you get paid? How does the investor get paid? Well, there's three ways you get paid. The first way is every year we do a cash on cash distribution. We do it every November. I hope everybody's got their the investors out there who are already invested in Western Wealth Capital that you've received your distributions, and thank you for being investors. Year one, I call it year one. That's the first 12 months is really stabilizing your asset, and that's why you'll see the year one cash flows to be a little bit less predictable. But year or month 24 and on, I rather talk about months, because people think if we buy a building in August and we're paying out a distribution in November, they look at a year one pro forma. But no, that year one is more of a 12-month period, and then 24-month and 36-month period. And so what we do is we pay out 80% of the free cash flows. So after 12 months, and then we take forward until the next November, what we're performing here of the 4.5% effective return, we're going to pay out 3.6% to our investors. So simple math, if you invest $100,000, year one, you can look forward to a check of about $3,600 in November.
Okay, so real quick, I'm going to just pound this again, because I get emails with people from November. Hey, I only got 3 or 4%. Look at these numbers. This is what the model is, right? This is a capital growth model, folks. So this is a model that is intensive about creating equity, creating value, and driving towards those refinances and stuff. This is really important that you understand that this is not one of those. It's not a coupon clipper.
It's not a coupon clipper. I was just going to say that, Buck. That's great. Right? You're right.
This is really, really important, because some people, and I think it's really important that you make decisions based on what you want. Most people in our group are making decent salaries. They don't really need, cash flow. So this is a great model to create capital. But if you get 3 or 4%, don't be disappointed, because that's the whole idea. This is a capital growth model, because the cash on cash distributions, I don't even look at that with Western Wealth Capital deals. It's meaningless to me, because really what it is all about is return of capital and total annualized ROI.
Correct. And that's a great lead into the second way how our investors get paid. And it's something you've talked about a couple times already today, Buck. It's that return of capital. It's creating that equity, or creating that value as fast as we can, so we can return it to you. So, in this model, we're saying in, year 2 or 3, our goals return 49% of your, the original equity back to your investors, and 3, 4, another 25%, and then 4 or 5, 100%. So, that's really, our model is create that value as fast as possible. Get the money back to, de-risk your investment. Get that, equity back to your, to the investors, or to our investors, so they can turn around and reinvest that somewhere else and start, making money on money. So that is the second way investors get paid. And go back to that refinance, slide that I had. This is one area, same with, I'm going to show in the next slide, but one area that we have exceeded expectations where we definitely have over delivered in this area of executing on our model and getting that money back to our investors. And then lastly, how else does the investor get paid as well, on exit, so on divestment. So on a 3-year, 5-year exit, this property, what you're going to see with all of our properties, it's going to be anywhere from a 16 to a 19. You're not going to see 25s. We're very conservative with our model. These are all net of fees. So as an example, on a 3-year exit, if we say what we say we're going to do in 3 years, the value of that building is going to be $45 million, and after exit and after all fees, we're going to return an annualized return to our investors of 17%, or a 5-year exit, 18%. And, that's, again, all net of fees. But what you have to take in consideration as well, too, is two things. One is, let's say if it's a 5-year exit, it's 18% annualized return. But if we've returned 75% of your money and you've already reinvested that money in something else, you're already, your compound return is a lot higher than 18%. As well, we do a cost segregation, full scrub, and bonus depreciation. So, it's very tax efficient as well, too. So, a great model, very math-based, very conservative. Our whole goal is to underpromise and over-deliver. So a quick summary here.
Couple things. Let me just go back to that model, because this is the shot, right? Couple things. First of all, one of the questions that always comes up, why 17, 18% as opposed to 30%? Because 30% is what the record is. Every one of these pro formas shows the same thing, like around 18, 19%, every one. So this is just, it's a pro forma. It could go above, it could below. We saw, Sunwood's doing 20%. It actually was over. There's other ones that are going to be higher. There's going to be some that are lower. And that is one of the reasons where there's a number of people within our group are doing a programmatic approach to this. In other words, they're investing in pretty much every deal a certain amount of money, because they understand that there's some of them are going to do off the charts, and some of them are going to do a pro forma. Some will do below pro forma, et cetera. So, trying to get some sort of exposure to all of the performances. The other thing that Tim mentions, I think is really important, is the difference between return on investment or annualized return versus return on capital. This is incredibly important, right? Because this goes to that whole infinite returns thing. Because think about it this way. So we talked about the average annualized return being 30%. What that does not take into account is if you have a refi of 50% of your capital and you reinvested that into some other opportunity, the money you make on that deal is not even included in that 30%. So the return on capital is potentially even higher. There was one example of an investor that I got from Western Wealth Capital, a gentleman who had invested in virtually every deal, $750,000 over the course of 5-6 years. And that just through the course of creating, reinvesting every time money came out, right? Whether that was through a refi, whether that was through a divestment, that $750,000 is now worth about $4 million. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen to you. What I'm trying to do is demonstrate the concept of return on capital. Where we've said 30% annualized returns is what the average divestment is. If you do the numbers on that, gentlemen's numbers, the annualized return on capital is approximately 98%. Again, I am not saying that's what's going to happen to you, but this is why I love this model, right? This is why I love the model, because it is very mathematical, and we have proof in the pudding. We've seen investors who've gone through multiple cycles and who've done extremely well. Tim, anything I'll add?
No, I mean, it's a great example of, was the gentleman, being invested with Western Wealth, found out of us about, a year in, and dipped his toe in, started with 25,000 and was doing on a programmatic relationship, meaning that he decided he was going to put into every deal. But he started with 25 and moved up to 50 and then 100, and as you said, I mean, he hit 750,000, said, I'm tapping out, but the money he's turned over, it's just, it's in that $4 million mark, and that's been in 4 years. Of course, he's very happy, and we're very happy, and he sings our praises. But again, it's all about, as you mentioned, and as we talk about time. Time is the big thing. The faster we can do it, the faster we get that money back to you. You reinvest it, and you're making your money on money, and we do it in a very conservative way as well too. We're not, as Buck said, we're not saying we're going to make you 30%. We're saying, our program says 17, 18. If we make you 30, then hallelujah. If we make you 50, that's even better. But our model is really all about managing that downside risk. And as you can see of everything, and our track record, we have, again, under promised and over delivered. That's who we are. So again, a couple, just to summarize, the three-way our investors get paid back. One is that 80% of free cash flows. So this model, we're looking at anywhere between 3.6 to 8.3%. That's your annual yield, or your cash on cash. I'm sorry, not your yield, your cash on cash. Close to 100% of your capital back and for that 4 to 5 year period. And what we're targeting is, we call it double your equity, but this won't be a complete double. We're looking at annualized returns targeted, to that 18% range in that 5 years. Funds due, this property does close at the end of January, so funds due will be January 15th for this property. And as always, and we got time for questions, but as always, I always mention, please contact Buck at wealthformula.com, or if you have my contact, please feel free. More than happy to reach out about this project or any other projects in the past. We try to be extremely transparent, and if I don't get back to you, it's I will. I'm either in a plane or a train or somewhere.
Plane, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah, you bet, buddy.
So if you would like to start asking questions in the Q&A bar there. In the meantime, one thing I want to draw your attention to, which, Tim didn't really talk about, which sort of is always in the back of my mind, is over the course of the last year or two, maybe, I don't know, but I think we're in most of them. We've acquired a lot of property in Dallas. And Tim, how much, at the top of your head, how many properties have we acquired? Or do you have an idea?
Have you participated in?
Yeah,
or Western?
I think most of the Dallas. Well, first do Western Wealth in general.
Well, last year we did 8 projects, and this year we'll end the year with 12. So 20 projects in the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. And that ranges from location, Phoenix, Dallas, Houston, and
no, I meant just in Dallas.
One in Atlanta.
Just in Dallas. Tim? Uh-oh. Did we lose him? All right. Can you hear me? Okay. Tim?
Yeah.
I can hear you. Oh.
Okay. Got it.
Did you guys lose me?
We lost you for a second.
You lost me.
Oh my gosh. Some kind
of. That was so profound what I was just talking about.
Okay. Well, I was interrupting you anyway, but.
No. I think I
just want Dallas.
Just Dallas. So you're going to put me on the spot. So we did 20 properties in the last 2 years. Dallas, well, it'll be 5.
Yeah. So it's 5 properties in the last year.
So in the last year, we've done
maybe more than 5.
3 in Dallas. This will be the 4th. We did Hunter's Cove, we did Bel Air, and the Brant and Bel Air.
Okay. Got
And
it.
then this will be the fourth.
And then there's at least one more coming up. And the reason I bring this up is you're wondering why I might be asking this, is that one of the exit strategies that I've seen through Western Wealth Capital is bundling these into larger, basically bundling them up and sending them to big buyers.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And when you do that, what happens?
Well, there's always a premium paid.
There's a premium paid. And so you're not seeing that in any of these pro formas. That's just one more thing that I'm keeping my eye on all the time, is we're building up a Dallas portfolio. And man, do those people in New York love Dallas portfolios. I know, because, we're competing against them too. Just even, when I do stuff, even with Dante, we're like, New York people. So if you can roll up, several thousand units into one sale to a big buyer, you're gonna get a premium. And that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to as we continue to rack up properties in these in this market in particular.
Yeah, so we did we did execute 12 properties in Phoenix this year to one group. They wanted, it was a large group that wanted exposure to that stabilized asset class, multifamily in Phoenix, and they came to us, and we definitely sold at a premium. And it was the single largest transaction in Phoenix in that asset class. And that, I guarantee you, it's going to happen again. It's going to happen in Houston. It's going to happen in Dallas. It's not promising it, but I agree. When we move into a market, we don't want to buy one building. We want to own 5, 10 buildings.
Yep. And that's just one more part of the model that, like, I think people are wondering why we cluster these things, and all of a sudden, we had like 4 in a row in Houston, and it's like, oh, what's going on with the Houston? Well, there's a reason for that.
Well, it's also, you think of this, Buck. It's a bit of, you can call it insider trading. I mean, this
Right.
Valley Oaks property, it sits right beside 2 properties that we already own.
Right.
So
right.
if you're buying a stock, and you know that stock's undervalued because
because
you have insider information about your competition, guess what? That's illegal. And we basically have that. We're buying a property, in the same area where we already own two properties. They're stabilized, mature properties. They're over 18 months owned. We're crushing it on both of them. We know what we're getting on rents. We know what we can achieve, and we're not putting that in our model. We're actually we're ultra conservative with our model. Like we're getting $285 rent bumps with a washer and dryer and Gold Star renovation, and I think, what are we saying here? We're going to get $165 all in, right? So, right. I mean, it's just
like we already know what it is.
We already know what it is, exactly. Right. And that's why we bunch as well too. We try and buy in a trade area that we already have assets and we're doing well.
Which are the specific assets for people who I know? Are they assets?
No, they're not ones that were part of the Western Wealth credit investor pool. They were bought by both were actually bought by a group, an individual actually, that we deal with out of Vancouver, Canada, and they bought 4 buildings.
The BlackBerry guy?
No, don't say that out loud. No,
I mean nothing. Don't. Yeah, don't.
Wasn't that group? But yeah, I mean, and they've they're very happy with what was transacted there, and I think when we did our Dallas tour. On the big one, we stopped at Hunter's Cove, but yeah, I mean they're in the Arlington Hearst area as well too, and we're right there.
Yeah,
right there.
Okay, well, a couple questions here. Srinivas always got good questions. Here's the first one. How much NOI increase did the prior owners generate from their renovations? Do you have any idea?
Not a clue.
Yeah. You know,
Um,
one of the things I'll comment on is we get a lot of questions about prior owners. We get questions about like, why are they selling? What do they do? What problems they have? You know, multifamily is an interesting thing, right? Like, you wonder when you walk these properties, sometimes you say, well, gosh, well, why are they selling then? Well, the thing is that a lot of times what you see is that, you know, there's syndications, right? So what ends up happening is that, you know, they hold them for 5 years or whatever, and then there's some capex issues, and they're like, well, we've had a good run. We can either sell this and return money to our investors with a nice profit, or we can go in and we can spend all this money to do more. And so it's simple as that. It's not like, you know, your personal home where you're like, I don't want to, man, you got to get out of here. It's a terrible neighborhood. No, it's not like that, right? It's a totally different animal. But anyway, yeah.
Get,
Tim,
just
what?
get him to email me. Just email me, and I can try and plan that for him for
All
sure.
right, yeah, so Tim at Western Wealth.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah,
If
Srinivas knows.
oh, you bet, you bet.
Yeah, yeah. And then he said, is if the submarket occupancy is 96% and Valley Oaks rents are much below market, then why is the Valley Oaks occupancy only 93%? When you expect the current occupancy at Valley Oaks to be near 100% with rents below market?
Great, good. I mean, good. Every question is a good question, but it's a good question. Um, the suites, they're just untouched suites. So, you know, people don't mind. That just proves our theory. People don't mind paying a little bit more money for a
Say it
nicer
again.
suite.
What do you mean? What are you talking about when you talk about the suites?
Well, because they're untouched. They're a true classic suite.
Hmm.
So I mean, if you're moving into an area and you can move into a 1980 special and pay $800, move into a building next door and pay, let's say, um, 1,050 for a suite that's maybe being touched up, or the one next door, which is an A building, and pay 15 or $1,600. Well, you're not going to move into the $800 one because you just don't, that's not part of your kind of your standard of living. So you'll choose the 1,050, right?
Right.
So that's what we love about that is we know that trade area that people are actually willing to pay for a renovated suite.
Hmm.
And with this building, hardly any of them are renovated.
Hmm.
So we know we're going to be able to go in, do those renovations, and get those bumps.
Next question: affordability index in the submarket. Can prospective tenants afford the anticipated new increase in rents after renovation? You should have a lot of data on that, right?
Yeah, I do, and I can email it to you, but definitely yes. It's a higher income submarket. I believe it's a six-figure submarket, which is well above the Dallas and national average.
How about in terms of the other properties you're seeing in the area that we have?
The other two properties are a little bit more. They're actually Arlington, so it's a little bit different of a little bit more workforce housing, where Valley Oaks is more, more of your young professional that has a higher dollar spend versus the other two. So again, that's another thing we love is the work. I mean, we're getting those $285 bumps on workforce housing, where we know we can get at least at least that or more for that young professional housing.
Scott was asking, how do post renovation rents compare to median rents for the area? Are many residents displaced by higher rents?
Sorry, can you ask that again?
Let's ask in two parts. I guess, how do renovation rents? So I think he's talking about, the pro forma rents
Yep.
compared to the median rents for the area. That's the
So,
first.
yeah, so the first part, and we do look at that. Once we're finished that renovation, so let's say I believe we're buying at let's say $1.08. The average rent is about $1.08. When we finish that renovation, we're looking at taking it to $1.24 per square foot. that is still, on average or below that medium trade area market rent for a like unit.
And then he's asking, are residents, are many residents displaced by the higher rents? When you increase the rents, are you ending up displacing a lot of people?
No, so we do all of ours on turn. Our natural turn, what we find on our portfolio is about 3% a month. So again, if you have 300 units, that's 9 a month. So we're doing those renovations on turns.
Srinivas was asking, will you be implementing any smart technology on this asset? Phone controlled locks?
We are still playing with the smart technology. We are trying it in 4 buildings and 4 different markets right now to see if it is a go forward strategy. We're still tinkering with it. As of for this building, it'll be a no. But that's saying that we may not implement it after.
Asif was asking, can you provide financing detail? Maybe that's a good time to just talk about the Freddie Mac supplemental debt, which I think is fairly unique to the model.
Yeah, so when we buy a building, and round numbers, and we buy a building for $20 million, Fannie, Freddie, whatever the agency is, they actually provide us with a loan amount of $20 million. So one charge. And however, they'll lend us, depending on the model, anywhere between 65 to 75% of that $20 million. And then as we create that value, we're not actually going back and doing a very costly refinance. What we're doing is called a supplementary. So we're just basically, pulling some numbers, pulling some math, and then just increasing that charge, that one charge on that building, not doing a second charge or third charge. We're just increasing that number from that, 70% of, let's say, at 20 million, that 14 million. And, we created an additional $5 million in value. So they're going to give us another 70% of the 5. So another, $3.5 million. So that the loan basically just goes up from that 14 million to 17.5.
The bottom line is, this is a really unique model that allows you to essentially refinance without paying the cost of refinancing.
Yeah, and again, like everything we do, we're nimble, we're fast,
right?
It's quick.
Right. Srinivas is asking, he says he sees 26 3-bedrooms. Are the 3-bedroom units common in the submarket? If not, are you able to charge a premium for these?
Well, this is another reason we like the buildings, because there's a lot of families. Like the 2 schools right there, high demand. The 3-bedroom units are all rented out, and they are in high demand. So we're going to be able to push those the 3 bedrooms, and then the 2, of course, will be the ones that are in the highest demand. So those are the ones that typically will get the renovations as they turn first. And and what we do see in the comparables in that trade area, that the 2s and 3s are definitely well below market.
Will a cost segregation be done on this property? The answer is yes, Paul, and also bonus depreciation. So basically, the idea is you do a cost segregation. Usually that separates the real property from the chattel. And then it used to be that you could scrunch that chattel up into 5 years, but bonus depreciation allows you to squeeze it all into the first year.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, it looks like that's it for questions. If you are interested in this asset, as I said before, there's just over about $800,000 left here in the raise. If you've already talked to Lisa before and you've worked with Lisa, feel free to email her directly. Let her know. Otherwise, shoot me an email at buck@wealthformula.com. Like to make sure that before you make any decision, that it's that you feel that it's a hard commitment, it's always a little bit harder when you have people who are kind of going in and out of things. We don't have it very much, but always discourage it. It's something that you got to take a look at, and and if you want to talk to me or Tim specifically about the model or the team, let us know, and you know go from there. If you have any other questions, again, reach out to Tim or me, or you can always email me easily. I can forward it to Tim as well. Any other comments, Tim?
Thank you again. I really appreciate having me on. It's when's the last time? When was the last one we did, Buck? I can't even remember. It was so long ago. So
I don't know. Well, I know you're sort of funding before we did the webinars, but I think Thanksgiving stopped at this time. So
really appreciate it, and thank you for the time.
All right. So again, email me if you want to commit. All right. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Thank you.